The Dallas Stars pulled off a Christmas miracle. The Stars are still finding a way to win without a power play. And how about Scott Wedgewood? The wedge wall is in full effect. Let's get into it next on Locked On Stars.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joe Erickson, former producer, 105 Through the Fan, and play-by-play voice of the Chippewa Steel. Be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. I hope you enjoyed the holiday break. And how about that Christmas miracle from the Dallas Stars? Not one, but two goals in the final 15 seconds to steal a win in Nashville, completely stunning the Predators on Saturday. And they're still finding a way to win with a power play that has gone dry. How can the Stars get out of the rut they're in? And Scott Wedgewood has been a savior as well for this Dallas Stars squad. It's always important to be good in between the pipes, and Scott Wedgewood certainly has. We'll touch on him a bit as well on today's episode. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Go ahead, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So how about that? The Dallas Stars become the first team in NHL history to earn a win after scoring a game-tying and go-ahead goal in the final 15 seconds of regulation. And now the Stars have the a league best 12th comeback win as well. So two very positive signs for the Dallas Stars is, well, they're not quitting, even if it is a 2-goal deficit heading into the third period, and they're finding ways to win when they're not playing at their best. And I thought they played very well on Saturday. It just felt like maybe they were going to run into a good goaltender and a Nashville team that played really well. I really like the Predators' makeup. They're big and heavy, and they made the Stars earn every single thing they got last Saturday. The game was played on the majority on the outside, on the board battles, and Stars just struggled to win a lot of those. And then they had to grind it out. They certainly did. And they get the game tire from Craig Smith. Just such a greasy goal. Joe Pavelski makes that play happen along with Robertson beneath the end line. You get a lucky bounce that goes your way, and you cash in for it. And, of course, it's Jani Hakanpaa who delivers the blow. Exactly the guy you're going to put out there in the final 10 seconds to generate some offense is Jani Hakanpaa, and he scores his first goal of the season to give the Stars a win. And having that in your repertoire, so to speak, I think is a good thing. There can be a counter where it's not so good because the Stars are playing from behind a lot, and they certainly have. That's never a good thing. They need to get out to more leads and play from behind because it's just not sustainable. And you see it in every sport when you're playing with a lead versus playing from behind. And yes, the Stars have played very well from behind. Partially, they give up leads early, which gives them time to come back, which I guess is a silver lining. But they had to erase two goals in the third period against Nashville, and they certainly did that. And they have a game and the scoring ability to do that, but we all know the real weakness is the defense, and they're surrendering 2 to 3 goal leads, and their offense can sometimes dig you out of that hole. And they've certainly have, and they had to last Saturday before Christmas, and they're able to get the job done. But you have to be super thrilled with the outcome. And now the Stars are first place in the Central Division, 44 points, 28-4. And you wouldn't believe it, but now the Stars are in the top 5 in the NHL, which is pretty crazy because this team has not played their best hockey yet. And look, I'm no stranger to being critical at some points, but at the same time, you have to step back and realize what they've done so far. And it's been extremely good. There's a lot of positives. Yes, there's some negatives, and I still don't think they're good enough to win a Stanley Cup right now. They need some help. But you can't argue with the fact that they've played really good 30 games into the season, 32, and they're right amongst the best in the NHL. They finally picked up some quality wins. The game against Seattle was really hard fought. Of course, coming back against Vancouver late was phenomenal, and Vancouver's now top in the NHL. But the Stars are fifth here with 44 points, 20 wins on the season, and they're right there in the conversation with the Colorados of the world in Vegas. New York's up there, and of course, Boston's who's having an incredible year. The Stars are forced to be reckoned with this season, even if they haven't looked very pretty at all. And there's some growing pains, of course, and there's something that needs to be ironed out, but they do a lot of things well. Look, they have one of the best penalty kills in the league, and albeit it's been a little bit loose and leaky here as of late, their power play still ranks about middle of the pack. I would see that continuing to be good. It's gone cold, and we'll touch on that here in just a moment, but they score, they get good goaltending on most nights, and they've really cleaned up in front of Wedgewood. I think that's my biggest takeaway here over the last week. And really, since Otter went down, they've done much better in their own zone, tracking back, defending as a five-man unit. They've been much better on their breakout and exits of their own zone. They've been cleaner, and they're just not giving up as many grade A chances. They've really taken the middle of the ice away, which teams do really well against Dallas. And they're not necessarily taking a page out of anybody's playbook. Look, the Stars play a man-on-man kind of style defense in their own zone. So forwards are, we're going to have a man. Defense is going to be on some forwards. So you're going to get forwards that are forced to block out and box out in front of your own net, whether you like it or not. But you saw it a couple times with Rope. He had to mark his man in front of Wedgewood in the game against Nashville, and he was able to force a shot wide. That's just the type of Pete DeBoer system that he runs, and he's going to have his forwards have to do. He has the personnel to do it. Craig Smith, great in his own zone. Faksa, one of the best shutdown defenders in the NHL in general, but certainly on the Stars. He's got speedy guys. They've been leaky, of course, but I think they've really nailed it down. And part of it, I think, is just kind of a mindset shift. And DeBoer, of course, wants them to be run and gun to some degree, but the offense hasn't been a problem. They've scored 114 goals this season. That ranks seventh in the NHL. They're right at that 3.5, 3.5 goals per game. They were at 3.48 last year. We haven't seen a dip in offense at all. They've outscored a lot of their issues here this season, and they're doing a bit better in their own zone. I think they buckled up, and part of it, I think, is just a mindset. Look, I don't think the personnel's great. You've heard me say that, but I think you'd be kidding yourself because they've been a really shut down defensive team in the last 5 seasons or so. The personnel hasn't changed a ton. Like 3 years ago, yeah, there was a lot different with Klingberg here, and you still had some other guys like Pollock who were really shut down defensemen. But I mean, the last 2 or 3 years, it's been the same personnel with some interjections. And look, Thomas Hartley's come in, and he's been arguably the best defenseman this year. I mean, he's scoring goals. He's great in his own net, or great in front of his own net. He can play with anybody, which is an even better sign. He's like Miro now, where you can just trot him out there with anybody and play him 20 minutes a game. Him and Miro should be playing more because they're incredible. Their expected goal percentage is highest between all defensive pairings that have played at least, 40 minutes. Not a ton of minutes together, but when they're out on the ice, make a lot of good things happen, and they don't allow much as well. I think that's my big takeaway, though, from the last week. They have been more engaged in defending as a 5-man unit. That's important. They need to get back within the top 10 in terms of goals against. They slumped to about middle of the pack. And if you look at the Stanley Cup winners and like the last 2 decades, almost all of them, I think only one was outside of the top 10 in that category, and I believe it was Washington with Ovechkin. And look, they had a lot of firepower too up front, but if you get great goaltending and better defending, it leads to good things, and that can be kind of a cohesive thing. Look, Otter hasn't been great. I've pumped the brakes on kind of falling out of love with him because I think some of it was overblown. I think he's good. I think he's really good and special I don't know if he was fully healthy. Is there still somewhat of a lingering injury from the surgery he had? Maybe there was something there. I don't know. They never alluded to it, so I don't want to go that far and just completely speculate about it, but maybe he wasn't fully healthy. Maybe this is a wake-up call. Get him fully healthy. He needs to be fully 100%, 110, please. And Scott Wedgewood's playing phenomenal, and I definitely want to dig into him and how great he's been. He's been a saving grace, gives you a chance to win every night. You have to have two goalies in this league anyways at this point. You just have to have a two-goalie system. It doesn't work because eventually your guy's going to get worn out. One of the reasons why Winnipeg had a huge collapse last year, they're playing phenomenal. Who knows if they can keep that up the rest of the way. Hellenbach is a workhorse. He always has been, and he's always been good. I'm not going to argue that, but look, they had a huge collapse there late because they have to ride him. And look, Oettinger had the same degree as that, where he played a lot in the final month of the season, the last 2 months with Wedgewood out for a month. And maybe he was a bit tired heading into the playoffs. So I think those are my big takeaways. They're getting really good goaltending, keeping him in the fight, and they've made a more conscious effort to defend. I think it's sort of a mentality like, hey, we have to do this. We've been getting a bit too over anxious about getting on the gallop and scoring goals. We need to be responsible in our own end before we go down and try to light the lamp. And they've certainly been better in that department. And hey, you can win coming from behind. That's a great, great attribute. I wish they wouldn't play from behind as much. I think that's a double-edged sword. You can play from behind, but it's good to have that in your back pocket. And Duchesne touched on it. Look, we're confident no matter what. And they should be. They have three really good lines. DeBoer also changed up the lines again, which I love. He's not afraid to do that. He never did that last season, but if they're not generating offense, he's like, all right, here we go. Duchesne, Robertson, team up. We're going to throw Dadanov with you, and we're going to figure this out. And they did. And they mustered up on Saturday, and what a crazy miracle that was. So Merry Christmas, Stars fan, and happy holidays as the Stars return to play tomorrow against St. Louis, taking on the Blues once again. Lost to them in overtime just about a week ago. Hopefully they can exact some revenge tomorrow. But another day off here today on this Tuesday. Let's touch on this power play that has gone cold. Special teams has been a bit shaky lately. I have a few reasons why I think why and how they can fix it. And we'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard me talk about FanDuel so many times. There's no better time than now to get the FanDuel app. The weather's getting colder, and the NFL offer stays hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time, folks. It's cold. You got the NHL, you got NFL, you got NBA. It doesn't just have to be NFL, and the app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. I know many of us were sad about the Cowboys not giving us a great Christmas Eve. Stars had us in mind, though. But those dang Cowboys just let another one slip. They can't play on the road, but you can make money while watching the Cowboys because they put up a lot of good stats. It doesn't always result in wins, I'll be honest, but hey, you can make some money while doing it. So go ahead, visit FanDuel.com, enjoy some football, and enjoy playing with your friends and winning some bets. And you can do it with FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, a official partner of the NFL. By the way, Locked On has launched its first ever 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories every day with local experts, and the Locked On Plus are national shows covering every league. So go to YouTube, subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Be sure to subscribe to Locked On Stars. Big shout out to everybody in this fandom, the everydayers out there that come on here and listen to me ramble. And I love engaging with you guys as well in the comment section. You guys get such great feedback and great observations. Trust me, I read them all the time. I try to engage with you guys too, because I just love it. And we've had a pretty roller coaster of emotions, I feel like, here in the last month or so. I'll be honest, I got into the sky is falling situation about a month ago. It's also really crazy, and we're going to get in the power play here too, but how much winning just solves everything, because you lose against St. Louis in a shootout after you barely eked by in a very weird game against Ottawa too. But you lose in a shootout against St. Louis. Imagine if you head into this last week. Yeah, you picked up 2 points because you got to overtime against Vancouver and Seattle. But if you lost those games against Vancouver and Seattle, and what it looked like was going to be a loss against Nashville, man, I feel like we'd be having a very different story. But look, they don't ask how. Just stack up wins and points. And that's what the Stars are doing. And they're becoming more consistent, which is a good sign. And maybe there's a bit of an identity. Speaking of an identity, they need their power play to be one. They're now 0 for 14, 0 for their last 14, I should say. And man, they cannot muster up any offense. And if their power play could get going, they could be the deciding factor, especially in the last 4 games or so. You went 0 for 4, I believe it was, against Seattle. That game should have been over with 5 minutes into the third period. You had a chance to bury them. You let them hang around. They get a 6-on-5 goal. Vancouver's another game where the power play could have had immense impact in the game. Couldn't muster up anything. And granted, the PK's been phenomenal. So to some degree, it's been a wash because their PK's been good. They're rocking at 86%. But the power play now, 0 for their last 14. They're still about middle of the pack, 22%. They've only had 95 power play opportunities. So they don't get on the job much as well, which is pretty fascinating with the amount of ozone time they have. And the stripes in the game against Nashville were all sorts of wonky. The Yossi thing where he made a glove save, albeit save of the year contender, but how you can close your hand on the puck and just launch it to the wall, you don't see that in the middle of the crease. I don't know. Anyways, they should have been rewarded a power play there, but they've really struggled on their exits too, or not their exits, excuse me, their entries. They seem to not be on the same page, and they run themselves into really, really bad situations. Of course, they try to pick up speed and they hit the trailing guy that's curling with speed. I think they need to employ just making the more simple play. Sometimes it's a bit too individualistic where you're trying to cut through 1 or 2 guys and then you hit a guy on the flank. I've never been a fan of hitting a guy that's standing flat-footed, which you see a lot. I think they need to embrace scoring off the rush a bit more. We saw that last season where they're not afraid to try to score off the rush. And we saw that at the beginning of the year when the Stars had a really, really bad dry spell. At the beginning of the season with their man advantage, they were able to pick up some goals off the rush with Rope using his speed down the wing. But they seem to want to kind of, get to the line and lay it off to some guy that's flat-footed. I would like to see them carry the puck in with speed. And look, I understand they're trying to do that. It just hasn't been coming to fruition too often, and they need to work from the point a bit more. And you could say they're trying to do that a bit too much, but they just need to get shots through. Miro, I've stated it here about a week ago, touching on how he's getting a lot of shot opportunity. He's missed the net a lot, but he's creating the second most rebounds in the NHL too. They need to get him going from the top of the zone. Good things happen when Miro is shooting the puck and getting them through. He becomes a shin pad assassin sometimes, but when you have Pavelski and Ben in front, which he needs to get going, he's without a power play goal this season. He had 13 a year ago. So there's some guys too that need to get off the schneid. I would like to see Harley get a bit more time too with the second unit because he gets pucks through. he has 9 goals, tied for the most in the league amongst defensemen. And they have to try to find a way to get Robo involved. And partially is, I think they're just forcing a lot of things. They did make a conscious effort to shoot the pill a bit more against Nashville, which was a good sign. Saros was really good on at least one of the Stars power play. They may have only had one. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the Stars did get a couple of shots, but they need to find a way to just get more pucks on, simplify it. They've had a ton of perimeter work. And to some degree, I think it's the way teams are defending them. They are just stacking the box, and they've made it really, really hard. So the Stars have to find new ways to find soft spots. I think they could work that kind of bumper position more in the high slot. They found great success with that. They haven't scored a power play goal since, I believe, their first opportunity against Ottawa, it was. And then they had a couple of power play goals against Detroit, which was, I guess, now 2 weeks ago. And they had that really key goal from Pavelski in that kind of high slot tip possession where Rope fed it off Pavelski's blade and ends up in the back of the net. They need to shoot with a bit more purpose. I think sometimes they're looking for that tip a bit too much. Just get rubber on the net and create havoc. But they've been finding a way to win, which is always a good sign. And most of that is, too, they're winning the special teams battle by just making it a complete wash. They did not win the other night against Nashville, who, of course, capitalized with their second goal of the game on the man advantage from Sissons, but they need to try something else. Their entries have been very poor. A lot of times they're not connected, and when it's going bad, they're chipping in from the red line and nobody's going after it. I mean, talk about infuriating. Someone go after the puck, forecheck. The amount of times there's a dump in or a rim, and there's nobody within 15 feet of opponent's defenseman when they corral the puck. Like, well, that's going nowhere. Just a waste of possession and a waste of 20 seconds. But no doubt that they're going to figure it out. Look, it's just a slight dip here recently, and they're a bit streaky this year. That's just maybe how it's going to be. Because when it's going good, man, it feels like they're going to score every time. And to some degree, it has been that way this season. They're just in a bit of a skid right now. But they have been able to draw penalties, at least recently. Sometimes a few years ago, man, they drew like second least power plays in the league. They are getting some more chances here as of late, like 3 or 4 power plays a game, just not being able to capitalize. And it would help bury teams. It would just help 2-3 goal leads I'm talking about. And you don't have to worry about some of their outcomes because, man, they're playing a lot of tight hockey games this year, a ton of 1-goal games. And they've been very good in those situations. I will give them that. I think it would do a lot for us and our lifespans if they could win by a few more. But they do rank top 5 in the NHL 2 in goal differential at plus 13. And as I mentioned at the hop, top 5 in points here this season. And a Merry Christmas to you Stars fans. First place in the Central Division, having a heck of a year. All righty, let's talk about Scott Wedgewood next. I want to segue into the Wedge Wall, who has been shut down, and we will do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is obsessed with you having peace of mind with your ticket purchases. You have your sports fan out there. Also, with it being Christmas, get them a late Christmas gift. If you're not seeing somebody, maybe a family member till a bit later on, and you didn't know what to get them and are a huge sports fan, get them the gift of Game Time and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. I had to go to a Stars game. I didn't have to go. I wanted to go to 2 Stars games last week, and I did. Go to Game Time. You can see the tickets and the seats from where you purchase before you get them, which is so great because we've all been there where you get a bar or a window, a glass, a railing in your way, and that is so frustrating. You can see the view from your seat before you buy it. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, go to Locked On NHL or use code Locked On NHL, LOCKED, and go to Game Time for $20 off your first purchase. One more time, LOCKED. NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So Scott Wedgewood is sort of the glue holding everything together recently. And when Otter went down a few weeks ago now, man, that was a bit of a scary sight to have Otter out. Stars had not been playing great, but Wedgewood, and this is what a great backup netminder does to you, comes in and he delivers. And Wedgewood has arguably played almost better to some degree than Otter at some moments in the season. He's had some spectacular games. And by no means I'm trying to say Wedgewood is better than Otter. I would not go that far. But taking a look at his numbers on the year, the Stars have only lost one game and a couple past 60 minutes, but 9-1-2. That is an incredible points percentage in his 12 games. 3.08 goals against average, nothing to jump up and down about. 903 save percentage. But in his last 5 starts now, he's won 4 out of the last 5. He lost an OT against St. Louis, but he came in against Ottawa, did a great job mopping up, and he's been fantastic ever since. A couple of 30 goal or 30 save nights, 34 saves against St. Louis. And the loss, and then 38 save win against Seattle, which he was spectacular. Made just 17 saves against Vancouver, but got the job done there. And then he made 19 against Nashville. Stars have done a much better job of limiting some high danger chances and just a ton of rubber being just thrown towards their netminder. But Wedgewood is having a phenomenal season, and it's all you can ask for. And I've talked about it before, where I just feel like he keeps you in the game no matter what. He doesn't give you a ton of stinkers, and there probably will be one there in a different stretch, but this is unfamiliar territory for Wedgewood to some degree. And Pete DeBoer also spoke about how he's been talking with the goalie coach Jeff Reese. You have to change your mindset from being a backup and to being the guy, where you're expected to play every other night instead of being rested for 10 days and then jumping in to get a spot start. His most starts in a season was 37, and that was kind of compiled with New Jersey there. And he was 13-15 in that year, but played 21 games last year. But other than that, he hasn't been kind of a number one netminder. He kind of was there for a bit in Arizona before he got traded over to Dallas. And I think he's just been everything you could ask for. Love his game. His rebound control's been great. He just competes. He competes. And you can tell the Stars really play for him, which I think is just a nice attribute to have, and just to be an easy guy to play for. I think he's just a great veteran presence too, especially for Otter. And the Stars would not be here without him this season. And I mean, look at his numbers: 9-1-2 in the 12 games he's played for. Because sometimes I think that is one of the hardest positions you can play. Not only is the most important in the game of hockey, but it's 90% mental, and not playing every day. You would think it would be hard to be engaged and be locked in at all times. And he came into that Ottawa game when Ottawa went down and just kind of never missed a beat. And I think that's really remarkable and admirable for a guy. So the wedge wall has been in full effect. And I touched on the tandem in general for the Stars, and just taking a look at kind of their goal save above expected averages and certain things like that. But Wedgewood now goal save above expected is at minus 3.8, which is not good. I understand that, but he was at minus like 5.4 at one point before this latest stretch. So he's improving, and that is goal saves saved expected per 60 at negative 0.316. He's allowed 37 goals this year, and in 12 games. I think he's just been really, really superb, and he's giving the Stars a chance to win every night, which which is all you can ask for out of a backup goaltender. I know I beat a dead horse with that one, but he's been so good, and the Stars can't seem to really lose without him, which is always a good sign. So the wedge wall has been in full effect this season, which makes the Stars so deadly as well. As I touched on, you cannot play this modern day and age with kind of just one goalie. Look at Boston. Look at some of the teams with great netminders. Vegas with Hill and Thompson. Yeah, come playoff time, you kind of have to ride one, but the days of just one guy playing almost 70 games a year is just over. The guys need rest. And I think it's a lot more physical toll on the position than it used to be. And the Stars have a very, very good tandem. And hopefully when Otter comes back fully healthy, he just picks up right where he left off. Maybe not right where he left off because it was a bit shaky at some times, but picks up from early on, like the first 5 games in the season when he was like lights out, spectacular. If we can get that version, man, you got to feel really, really good about where the Stars are headed. They are headed tomorrow night into the St. Louis Blues, taking on the Blues one more time on the year as they had a overtime loss just a few days ago, about a week ago. But we'll be back tomorrow and we'll talk about that matchup some more, and we'll dig into a few more things, and yeah, we'll go from there. So I wish everybody a Merry Christmas once again. I hope everybody's enjoying the holidays with your family and just enjoyed some good food. I know I have. It's been really, really fun being home. I'll be back home tomorrow. I'll be flying back tomorrow. So I'll be back at home ready to watch the Stars hopefully get a defeat. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and we will see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.